Welcome back. It's Andrew Eborn here with Lives on Lockdown, and my very special guest is Simon Craze.
Oh, hi.
Still there, Simon. Well done. Before the break, we were talking about the immense pressures and trying to look at different people's perspective. Because in any organisation, everybody has pressure on them. A particular role, if you're the head of a school or you're the head of a business or you're the lead in whatever sort of entity it might be, the pressures are on you to deliver what might be a slightly different focus. It might be, we've got to deliver results, so we've got to deliver a certain amount of money. That trickles down to a different focus in the people in the pyramid as to what they had to deliver. So vocations, such as teaching and so on and so forth, you're there because it is a vocation. You want to do what's best for the kids. You want to find the kid who's on an F and bring them up to a C. Now, the conflicts of interest can sometimes cause clashes, and those clashes can sometimes have a really detrimental effect.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the pressures that the people that I was working with, and it was heartbreaking. See, because there are people that I'd worked with the entire time I've been teaching, for the whole 10 years. And my mentor, the woman who kind of mentored me and was essentially my boss for a long time, was just one of the most amazing, compassionate women that I've ever worked with. And she had it right. She had the mix right. She understood that she worked for an organization. There were results. There were things that had to happen. And she was a hard person to work for sometimes because she has very high standards. But the second anything comes in that is a bit human, everything goes away. So when my first son was born, after about we had him home for about 24 hours, and he's fine now, but he essentially died in my wife's arms. It was a missed cot death, I think it was, but she was holding him and she said, "Simon, he's gone grey." And he was completely lifeless and floppy. And we called an ambulance, and she was able to do CPR on him, and they got there amazingly fast, and they managed to save him, thankfully, and he's fine now. But at that moment, we had sort of a good sort of 3 or 4 hours sitting in a little room thinking, like, because we heard the ambulance man going, "He's gone," as he took him into the ambulance. And I remember sort of thinking, like, after we found out he was okay, and we lived in the hospital for 2 weeks with him. And I thought, I need to let work know. And I rang her, and she said, why are you calling me? Don't worry about it. Just don't think about it. And it was an amazing feeling that she wasn't like, well, if you could just get those lesson plans in and do this and do that. It was like, well, no, this is much more important. And I think that was key the whole time I've been working. And I said it to my counsellor once, and he went, "Oh, that's a good point." I love my job that I do now. I love it. And I loved teaching in a way. But any job that I do is only ever going to be a means for me to enjoy a healthy, happy life with my family, and to provide for them. That is the only reason I'm ever going to go to work. And if I can enjoy what I'm doing, fantastic. And as soon as it's like ownership of a company. As soon as it's taking up 51% of your life, then it disappears in a puff of logic. There's no point. That's not the same for everyone, but I think that's how I viewed it. My family has always been the only reason I've ever gone to work. I used to be a busker. I'd happily still busk every day and pay rent and eat crisps and be fine. But I've got a beautiful family that I love very much, and it gives me a sense of pride, working to provide. And it's about, my wife works much harder than I do. She provides a lot more than I do.
What does your wife do?
She works at the Environment Agency now. She was with the boys while I was teaching, and actually when I was signed off, it became a sort of a natural transition point where she then was like, "Okay, well, I'll start looking for work, and we'll see." So we kind of switched our roles. So I'm a stay-at-home dad now. As everyone else is at the moment, who's a dad. But normally, I'll drop the kids off at school and then come and work for the day from home, and that's really great. And
it is interesting, Sam, because a lot of people, the whole thing about mental health, and it's been a a passion for me to make sure that this is centre stage for some time. We set up this thing called Canned Laughter, which we did with the entertainment industry, sorted out with Equity, where people, and get people to talk about things, say it's okay not to be okay. And there used to be a massive stigma about mental health. And I always used to say, people would break their leg, it's all right. People would sign the car, say it's funny, haha, how did you break your leg? And you talk about it. You had a problem with the mental health. And then there was that massive stigma where people couldn't speak to anybody else. A lot of people felt as though they were alone because nobody else has these sort of issues, is what people felt. And actually that just added to the trauma. And we're starting in society to get better because celebrities and everyday folk and people like you have the bravery to come forward and say, I've had issues. This is how I coped. It's okay not to be okay.
Oh, 100%. And it would be thoroughly strange to live a life where you weren't not okay at some point. You know, you can't expect someone to be okay all the time. And particularly mental health affects everyone and every age. But in my experience as a man, when you grow up, you know, you have that kind of like, you know, I grew up with I was a very sensitive little boy, very shy, and also a bit weird. And my counsellor told me that that's not a bad thing to be weird. I think it's fine.
I love weird. Weird, I embrace.
Yeah, but as a you know, as an 8-year-old boy, I was, you know, I wasn't really ever sure what my place was, because I was surrounded. My dad's a very sporty guy, you know, really kind of into sports and kind of blokey stuff and that sort of thing. And I think when I first arrived, I wasn't quite what he'd ordered. I don't think it was quite sort of, you know, I'm pretty sure you said it was going to be a boy, you know. But what's interesting is my sister, my older sister, who's the most driven person you'll ever meet. She has what would maybe be considered at the time more masculine attributes at the time. Obviously now we know they're not, they're just attributes, human attributes. But I think as a child, she was very driven, very sporty, very active. And he absolutely loved that. He was like, brilliant, this is fantastic. But for some reason, there was a problem with me being maybe slightly having more in touch with my feminine side. I've got an incredibly strong mother, incredibly strong protective sister. I've got lots of female friends. A lot of my best friends are women. Obviously, quite fond of my wife. She's amazing. You know, so she is my best friend actually. But it wasn't okay for me to be a little bit more kind of sensitive, and so I grew up feeling like I was sort of a little bit. I just feeling a bit sort of ashamed, confused, and guilty about like just being myself. And yeah, I think as a guy, I mean, I've got a lovely neighbour, and he's a classic kind of, you can tell every single man he's ever come into contact with from the age of 0 to like 16 has been a blokey bloke, like piss taker, you know, like, and that's the kind of, and I can see why people do that, because it's like, I'm toughening you up, I'm getting you ready for the real world, you know, that sort of thing. But it's like, just say something nice, you know, just say something nice to me, or I'll say something, you know. And men find it really hard to sort of compliment each other and say, you know, oh, I like your haircut, instead of like, oh, who cut your hair? It's like, oh, your hair looks really nice today, you know.
Because, and I'll tell you, one of the reasons it happens is we are brought up with stereotypes. And we are brought up to fear things which do not fit within a certain way. You're a bloke, and therefore you should like this, and we go out on raw nights, and you get pissed, and you leer at women, and you do whatever it is. It's very boring and that sort of stuff. But that's how you're told to be, and the stereotypes start very, very early. And the reason the reason is, from society, people have been told to conform. And those that don't conform, and this applies to all sorts of prejudices, those that don't conform basically are treated as outsiders, and we have to ostracize them, we have to tease them, we have to bully them, and all that sort of stuff. The reality is, and what I found in talking to lots of people, the reality is the people who are the toughest, the most rare in your face, are actually the most painfully twisted and tormented inside.
Well, I mean, like you say, it's that need to sort of fit in and belong, and I saw so much of that teaching, and what helped was it helped me rationalize sort of what happened to me at school, you know, and my experience of being at school, and it helped to understand that a bit more, because I think what happens is because I taught, you know, 11 to 18-year-olds, and you would see the change. You know, you'd see year 7, they turn up, they're all little fluffy little triffids or tribbles, you know, just excited, full of beans. The girls and the boys are completely on a par with each other. So I would teach a technology lesson, and the girls would school the boys constantly, every time. They'd be like, I can do this, brilliant.
Right.
And then it'd get to sort of year 9, and they'd start to think, oh, maybe I shouldn't be better than the boys at this. And then you'd see these really bright, spunky, lovely, like intelligent girls suddenly start going, I can't do it. Oh, can you do it for me? To the boys in the class, to kind of, and it was heartbreaking. But what happens is, when you get to that age, when you get to that sort of 13, 14, you suddenly start to kind of, you become a teenager. You it's almost like you've been plonked in the middle of a massive plain of just a huge, vast expanse of land, and it's terribly scary. And so they will try and put a sort of a fence around them to feel secure. So they want a sort of a realm to work within. So they'll find a tribe, whether it's, you know, the sporty ones or the geeky ones or the goth ones or whatever. Every school, as long as schools have had little tribes, and there's comfort in that, and there's comfort in feeling like, right, okay, so it's a big, scary world. I'm going to have to go into it at some point, but I mean, I'm part of this club. We've all got the same hat. We've all got the same coat, same this. There's safety. I feel protected. And I never really, I dipped my toes into a few of them. You know, like I had a skateboard for a while, I had a BMX, and tried to do all this sort of stuff. And, you know, I just always end up just being ostracized. And I think it's really scary for kids to become teenagers, because they've got this sense that, you know, I don't have to listen to what you say, mum and dad, or adult over there. I mean, I have an opinion. You know, they get opinions and things, and they want them. But it's actually quite scary to have no boundaries at all. And you'd see it with you know, you get sort of kids who'd come in and they've got no boundaries at home. You know, a lot of the time dad's not around. Mum is overcompensating because she feels bad. A lot of mums blame themselves that the dad's left, and they feel guilty that the child doesn't have a father figure, so they overcompensate and treat them too much. And then the kid ends up talking to their mum like trash. And it's quite scary having no boundaries. Whereas if they're like, well, no, this is, I mean, I'm doing it all the time. I do it all the time with my son. It's a nightmare, but it is, no, this is why I'm asking you not to do this, because if you do this to someone outside of the house, they will do this, you know, and it's kind of learning where your boundaries are. But yeah, the tribes in school were very, very real, but there was nothing in terms of bullying that was more savage than the 13, 14-year-old girls. Because if a boy would come to you with a bleeding nose and he'd go, Andrew, punch me. And I go, well, why? And he said, oh, he said this about my mum. Okay. And I said this, and he punched me, and I said, so what do you want me to do about it? You know, and we'd sit and we'd talk, and they'd be fine with it after 5 minutes. They'd be, yeah, sorry about that, mate. It's a very sort of, the bullying with boys was more sort of physical, ridiculing, very overt, very open. You could see it. With the girls, you'd get a girl coming to you in tears, and she'd say, I think I'm being bullied. And you'd say, what's happened? And she'd say, I don't know. I feel bad all the time. Like, people just are giving me looks, like, and it's normally a campaign to take someone down. And it was heartbreaking to see. And the thing that I found really difficult to watch, I held my hands up a while ago and said I used to complain about the word anxiety being used by students a lot, because it's obviously being used a lot in the media and in the world. And so I get lots of kids going, oh, I'm just really anxious, or their parents would ring in and say she's really anxious, this, that, the other. And I'd get a bit like, oh, they're just jumping on the bandwagon. And then I actually saw, because I had a form group that I taught from the age of 11 up to probably 16. And I saw these girls, like I said earlier, these really bright, ambitious, lovely girls just plummet almost overnight sometimes. And what I realized is that the amount they use, I mean, this isn't a rant about social media and phones and things like that, but it's more of a sort of maybe something for any parents who are watching, maybe just to think about. but the amount of pressure on them is insane at the moment. And I would see these girls, and what I realized is, like, when I was at school, when I was being bullied at school, and feeling like very, very lonely, very lots of horrible things, I would go home and I would sit in my room and I would I'd taught myself how to play the guitar. I'd play that every day for hours, or I would just make something, or but I would go home and I would have a bit of time in my sanctuary. Now, every student takes their bully home with them in their pocket, and it is next to them until the second they fall asleep. And the second they wake up, that bully is right there, right next to their face. And that is where the anxiety and the amount of self-harm and the amount of just horrible things that are happening to amazing young people. And it's always the kids who, like I said, don't necessarily fit into a tribe. If you've got a teenage girl who gets to 13 and actually isn't wanting to start kind of dumbing down and just getting interested in makeup and stuff, well, no, actually, I'm really into this. They're taken down because they're a threat.
And the trouble is this, Simon, you're
actually it's right. Devastating to see. I mean, I had girls being taken out of school and homeschooled, and well, I can't really say I don't want to say too much because of student confidentiality and things. But it was devastating to see what was happening. And like I said, with the I've got my own kids, and they're obviously desperate. Ruben's 7; he's desperate for a phone, and I can't do it to him. And it's difficult because it's going to get more and more difficult the older he gets, and he will have one at some point. But it's kind of like, it would be like giving your son like a loaded gun and going, there you go.
Yeah. But also, and it's that pressure. And what I was going to say is, firstly, you are absolutely right. Bully has always been there. That people are bullying them, and often there's that spiral of bullying. People who have a really tough childhood and have really sort of tough parents, and they're bullied and they witness this sort of stuff, they normally end up being bullies themselves. That cycle of abuse continues. Nowadays, you're right, there's a number of different ways that everybody's being bullied. First, you're being bullied by the manipulation into what we have to be as individuals. And that's perpetuated by the media with you're personifying. All of a sudden, you should be looking like this. They talk about what a body should look like, that pressure there. The whole obsession with being liked. Facebook, I had 5,000 friends or whatever it is. I don't really know like a tenth of them. But that's what you have. You then have to wait. If you're telling you put a post on, you have to say, well, how many likes have you got? How many bits and pieces? You have the way that they manipulate you, that you have to wait for a message. So the little dots when somebody's typing a message, it's all done psychologically to mess with you so that you've captured them. But you're right, the bullying in our day growing up used to stop, hopefully, when you close your front door and you've got the sanctitude of home. Now, you're right, this 24/7 is in your face.
Well, if you imagine you've got a girl, and so you have a daughter who's, or a girl who's had a horrible day at school, and then she's on the bus on the way home, and she's got her headphones in, and then her phone pings, and it's like, you were such a fucking idiot today. Here's a picture of you looking stupid, and it just doesn't stop. It does not stop. It is relentless because you have, even if you've just got 3 girls that are going up on one of them, it's a campaign to take someone down. They fight with their claws out, and it's devastating to see. But like I said, they will, we'll see teenagers and kids walking around with their, and adults, to be honest, doing this. But imagine if instead of you being a happy adult and you've got like, oh, I've got a lovely text from Andrew, I'm going to be on Zoom today, fantastic, this sort of thing. It's just constant, you're a piece of shit, you're terrible, you're rubbish, pinging every 10 minutes to the point where actually, like I said, as you're going to sleep, that's what you're going to sleep with. That's what's in your subconscious while you're asleep. You wake up and you think, oh my God, okay, what happened while I was in bed, And as soon as that clicked with me, I realized that actually all of these kids aren't just jumping on an anxiety bandwagon and going, oh, I'm anxious, Some are, and some always will, with anything. And I think that's one of the problems with mental health, is that because it is invisible, it is completely open for people to go, yeah, I'm that, yep. Yeah. And because there are always people that will do that, there are always going to be people who will assume anyone who says, you know, when I was signed off, I was signed off with severe depression and anxiety. And I've had depression since I was, as long as I think 7 is like the age I can first remember it sort of really, you know, hitting me. And so I've always kind of lived with depression and been like, this is a part of me, this is part of who I am. That's my doorbell.
But the great thing about who you are is that birds sing when you mention.
They do, yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's like a Disney film. Is it
It
Snow
was like
White?
a Disney. I was expecting a little bluebird on my shoulder. God, you can come up. I love it. It was a glorious moment.
That was nice. Yeah. I can't remember what I was saying now.
No, you were saying about that always depressed. You were depressed from the age.
Oh yeah,
of 7.
but I never really felt anxious. I never really knew what it was. And I think when I used to, like I say, I used to be a busker, but I still do. I still sing in pubs, sing in band and things, and I used to get really, really kind of like before any kind of gig or performance, and I'd be like, oh, I'm really nervous. And I told myself after a while, I'm not nervous, I'm excited. So for me, like the feeling of being nervous, which is different to being different to anxiety, that's just sort of nerves, you know, like pre-show nerves or something. I just renamed and said, oh no, I'm just excited, you know. But then when I started to feel waves of anxiety towards like the end of, I'd never had a panic attack before, and I was sort of locking myself in my office, completely freaking out. And so that was new for me, just to have anxiety hit. And then to live with it for about 1.5 years, was an eye opener because I kept going back to my time teaching and thinking about the people I was working with and thinking about some of the students I was teaching, and I was like, wow, this was really difficult for you. But yeah, so depression's always been there. The anxiety, so it's kind of I think that was more part of packaged in with the nervous breakdown, and it was kind of symptomatic with that. And I've had sort of CBT, and I had regular counselling. Obviously that stopped recently, and you know, I was put on very, very heavy. I was heavily medicated for quite a while, and I've actually this week I've got down to the lowest dose I've been on for a long time, and I'm feeling good about that. So the time that I've had at home in this 11 weeks. And it's difficult because I'm very aware that there's people dying everywhere, and there are aside from coronavirus, the world is on fire at the moment, you know, and it's a terrible place for a lot of people to be. And I often feel guilty that I'm kind of, nothing's really changed a huge amount for me because I work from home, and you know, I'm a stay-at-home dad anyway. I can't remember what my point was.
Yeah, but you make a number of really good points, and I think that a couple of things just to pick up on that is, firstly, we become a society of labels. We always have been, actually. We always like to compartmentalize everybody. We always try and force them into the same box, and those who don't fit in the box we bully. That's been historical stuff. The other thing we've evolved into is a society of labels. So all of a sudden you label somebody as having mental illness. You think that, well, here are all the characteristics of mental illness, and you assume that somebody's got one bit of it, they must have all of it. Now that's wrong, because it affects people in different ways. What we also try and do is to turn around and say we forget the other person's perspective. So in the same way as I was saying about the bullies, they're probably got their own issues, which are making them be who they are in the first place.
I used to love,
which I find really helpful, is turning around and saying, okay, what is their perspective? Where are they coming from? Because so often perception and reality are not aligned. And I think a lot of the world's problems come down to communication. And the more we can try and say, well, let's sit down and make this happen, because there's then a knock-on effect. There's a great advert at the moment on the BBC, and it shows a schoolgirl, you probably know the advert I mean, schoolgirl reading a thing, she sees somebody's haircut. It looks like a terrible haircut, but she writes back and says, you've got a really nice haircut. Yeah. She then wrote to the hairdresser saying, oh, somebody liked my haircut. The hairdresser wrote to her boyfriend, said, somebody said something nice to me at school. Yeah. The boyfriend said to his grandma, oh, fantastic, we've had a great day. Everybody in that chain was then happy. Yeah. And it shows that if you can be positive and be nice, not in a twee way, but in a way that we're treating human beings with respect and courtesy and understanding, the world would be a better place.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And when I used to love parents' evening, because the point you made about, bullies, you'd get to a parents' evening, and you'd have this kid who was straight out the Beano, straight out the Bash Street Kids, just like, and then the parents would sit down, and his dad would go like, right, what's this little prick been like then? What's he done? And he said, oh, okay, great, fine, okay, brilliant. And it is 9 times out of 10, the kids who are bullying, as you say, there's an adult behind it. Most behaviour, if not all behaviour in a school, there's an adult behind it in some way or another. And if it's a child that's behind it, there's probably an adult behind that child.
Give me a child, as Socrates says, give me a child to the age of 7, I'll show you the man.
Yeah. And there's it's really hard not being able to kind of go, do you realise what you're doing, mate?
Well, no, but and this is my point. This is my point. The reason I love this forum, the reason I get on my soapbox and I meet people around the world and chat about that sort of thing. Are you off? Settle down. Sit down, Craze.
Sorry.
Not always fidgeting. No, but the reason I love this is that you have an opportunity to just say to people, enough already. Because if you don't call them out on it, they'll do it. And there are lots of big bullies out there. And they probably have reasons they're bullies. And because nobody bothers to say it's not okay, they'll carry on doing it. And that's why I think it should be that sort of moment. And the thing is, there are ways of doing it, obviously. You praise in public and criticize in private, because people have got their own self-esteems. And if you tell people in public that you've got it wrong, they're going to rebel against that. And it could end up in terrible ways. But there are subtle ways of influencing change in behavior. And even if it's a small thing, about getting people to talk about it. And I deal with some of the biggest people in the world, some of the biggest negotiators, the biggest, toughest people, and people who are huge stars to everyday folk. Prick me, do I not bleed? Tickle me, do I not laugh? You work on those sort of things. People are people. We all have insecurities. We all have issues. We all have bullies in our life. We all have love in our life, hopefully. It's a question of trying to get that into perspective. And the more we talk about things, the more we can understand.
Yeah, and it's the idea of mental health being a negative thing, and it's not. Like if because there is this expectation. I do fidget a lot, don't I? I'm very sorry. Because this expectation of
you can fidget. It's good. This is
the longest I've sat still for a long time. What was I saying?
You were saying about putting it in perspective and all the different influences and how you were saying how I was right. So I like being right.
The expectations to be perfect on young people, which are coming at them from all angles, and the idea that mental health is a negative thing and it's something to be ashamed of. You use the example of breaking your arm. If one of the biggest superstars in the world fell over and broke their arm, you wouldn't hold it against them. You wouldn't go, what's wrong with him? But then you take someone like Amy Winehouse, who is clearly a woman in pain. And the way the media sort of treated her as a kind of look at that, she looks rough, or look at her, what sort of state she's in. Why wasn't it an automatic response to say, are you okay? We shouldn't put these pictures on. Someone should call her agent and see, the fact that is so far down the list of things. And with young people, they are expecting to have this, it's almost like an avatar, like the avatars that you get on games.
Yeah.
The pictures that they put of themselves on there and the way they present themselves is basically like it's a version.
Yeah.
And I think, everything I'm saying has been said 1,000 times before. But the idea that if you have mental health troubles, that could impact your like it's just, like I said, to say a celebrity breaks their arm, they'll go on Instagram and go, "Oh, broken my arm," and get loads of likes and sympathy and stuff. But if someone went on and said, "I had a panic attack this morning and I had some really dark thoughts and I went for a walk and I wasn't sure if I was going to come back. I don't really know what I'm," and people would be like, "Oh," you would get people being kind, but you'd also get a lot of people kind of looking down on it. And I remember when I was signed off, I had occupational health meetings. I had CBT, counselling occupational health meetings. And the difference between my CBT, which was really helpful, really kind of compassionate and caring, the occupational health, I could very much tell they had a remit. which is to get me back to work as soon as possible. And so whereas I'd be sitting in my CBT lessons having some really good constructive talks, whenever I was in my occupational health ones, it was a little bit kind of like, so you better yet? No? Okay. And the school was getting really impatient because every time I was originally signed off for 2 weeks, which was nothing, considering the state I was in. And the first day was fine, but then I spent the rest of the time going, I've got to go back. I can't go back. I've got to go back. I've got to go back. And they eventually said to me, look, if someone breaks their arm, they can anticipate it will take this many months for it to fix. So we can say to the school this. And she said, like, normally with mental health issues, we can say it will take this long before your member of staff is ready to go back to work. And I wasn't, it wasn't contrived or anything. I just was in a complete mess. And I wasn't ready. And the school were kind of getting a bit, well, we need to know because we've got to get staffing in. There was no human element from the very top. The people that I worked with that cared for me were amazing, very supportive. But it was still a bit of a kind of a, is he better yet? And if I had glandular fever, if I was in a coma, if I'd had, broken all my legs and arms and things, then they would be like, yeah, we can see he's still in the hospital. Fine. Okay. And I think that's one of the problems with mental health is that it's expected to be something that you will get over like a cold, or something like that. And people are still a bit uncomfortable that it's actually something that people live with. I'm speaking to you now, and I'm very happy to be speaking to you now, and it's really nice. And I'm very animated and, articulate and stuff. But there are many times when I'm not. There's a lot of times when I'd say halfway through last week, I had a real dip from just the cabin fever and the change of routine. It really hit me hard. And I'm very lucky that I live with my wife and she's able to kind of go, look, okay, you take the time, because there are times when I'm a write-off, and I think people are uncomfortable that people live with mental illness. They don't sort of catch it and then lose it. It's something that you live with. It can be temporary. It could be, you could just have one really traumatic thing happen to you that impacts your mental health, and then you can slowly heal over time and with a few scars. But some people do live with it. And it makes not a lot of my friends. There have been some people that I used to speak to after my breakdown. I'd start to talk about it and the conversation would kind of, shut down very quickly, especially over text, I noticed. But anyway, yeah, mate, I've got to go. Makes people very uncomfortable.
And the reason for that is we live in a society which talks about putting in people boxes. Even the language pattern. That most people, you go and you listen to it, sort of, how are you? I'm fine. That's your start, isn't it?
That's it.
And it drives me crazy because I know you're not fine, and we don't need to do the dance. Yeah. No, I've had a terrible day. I've got my blackest moment, and I think it's having that honesty. And the other thing is that we're trained; it's inbuilt, and this is where the media have a lot to play, society have a lot to play, expectations, that whole sort of thing where people like to be in a box. It's all a try. We understand this. Play the game. We're all sheep. This is what's going to happen. Play the game, and we'll just carry on. And at the end, we're all done. Thank you very much.
Just keep your head down. Yeah. Yeah.
Keep your head down. Don't stand out at all. And actually, it's by being honest about it and say, everybody has a terrible day. As I say, we deal with lots of celebrities. Then the pressure on them is even worse because you live your life in the public eye. The media are all over you all the time. And they can build you up and you'll be a big star. And the majority of people, you've got your big star, and then it explodes, you go down again. And those who go down get really, really depressed. The reason so many comics suffer with mental illness and struggles is that big, what I call the joke cloak. You're big out there, you're all doing this sort of stuff. You go home and you're miserable. The Robin Williams of this world, Stephen Fry, all these sort of people, the great comics have big mental issues because they've had to put this bravado on and everything else. And this is the joke cloak hiding it.
Yeah, and you have that massive sort of come down afterwards as well. But I think you see it a lot in the magic world, I think, as well. I think I've always loved puzzles and riddles and magic and anything like that. That's just sort of the way I'm wired. But I think a lot of people, myself included, have used magic as a sort of a prop almost, So a lot of insecurities can be masked by going, oh, don't ask me about how I'm doing. Do you want to see a trick? Do you want to see a pick a card? You know, like, and there's a lot of that in the magic community, and I'm including myself in that. That's not a slight on the magic community at all, but I think a lot of us have been able to sort of find solace in magic as a way of being like, okay, this is my. So I go to the pub with a little leather bag that has a 10 trick, 10 tricks in there, and if I ever get nervous, I know that I've got that. I can kind of, if I meet someone new or something, because I go to the pub on my own a lot, and I do a lot of designing in the pub, because the background noise is like white noise. Sort of sitting in silence for me is a really difficult way to design anything. One of the hardest things to do. Like, I used to do a lesson with the kids where I'd give them all a completely blank sheet of paper, and I'd say, right, you've got 10 minutes, design, draw me something, and they're like, I could draw anything, and so some of them would just put their pen down and go, no. And some would, you get one kid that's like, really, but I'd say, okay, let's make it a bit easier. Draw me an animal. I'd go, okay, and they go, let's make it easier. Draw me an elephant. Draw me a cartoon elephant. Draw me a cartoon elephant and top hat. And the more you kind of whittle it down, you still get a completely different range of cartoon elephants wearing top hats, but they've had a little bit of sort of a structure to work within, I suppose. I've gone off. Sorry, I'm terrible for segues.
But I like the segues because what these things do, and one of the reasons I like this show so much and so many people open up, is that we don't have. I mean, if you watch traditional television, they've got a 3-minute slot. They have a guest on. They've got to plug their book. They've got to plug their record. You've got a nice little bit of banter. It's all very artificial. All works in sound bites. You don't get the real stuff.
Yeah.
The real stuff is when you do go off on a tangent. It is when you suddenly celebrate, because that's how the mind works, and that's okay, because you're triggering certain memories to think, hang about, this is why I do this is why I do that. The reason, and you're right about magic. A lot of the people in the magic community, and it's not a criticism, it's not a complaint, it's not a look at you. For a lot of people, magic gives them a reason for being. You find a lot of people who I've come across in that sort of world are probably socially inept. And what happens is they don't, I know, that's good, hold your hands, and this is what happens. And so it gives them a reason to be, it's what I said beforehand, about being accepted. And
well, I mean, I was incredibly shy as a teenager as well, and growing up, and it can be really daunting. I spent, whole time at uni as a teenager, going to clubs and parties and things like that. I spent most of the time locked in a toilet cubicle before we had phones or mobile phones to sit and fiddle on. I'd just be sitting there going, all right, I'll get 10 minutes and then I'll go and do another. And I would do a loop. I would do a lap at my uni bar. We'd arrive and I'd always be the one that would, I'd be like, right, guys, come on, let's all go out. And I get there and I go, oh God, I've now got to talk. Who wants a drink? And I go to the bar. That's a good 15, 20 minutes. Stood at the bar, not talking to anyone, waiting to be served. You get the drinks, you bring them back, you go, I've got the drinks. And I've played a role, I've played a part. Like, look, I'm the guy that gets the drinks. There you go. And then we'd stand around and I would drink really, really quickly because it kept my mouth busy. And it was something to do. And go, I've run out. I'm just going to go get another drink. And I'd do laps. So I'd go, it would always be, right, I'm going to go get everyone a drink. Then I'm going to go to the loo, sit in the toilet for 10 minutes. Then I'll come back, see if anyone else wants a drink. Excellent, someone does. And I'd spend a fortune. But it was all kind of avoiding anyone going, hi, and talking to me. Because I didn't know what to say. And it's the same with magic. I always just take tricks with me. And it's a way of... I mean, I think I'm a nice person. I'm a good friend. But I don't sort of impose myself on people. So a lot of people think I'm quite stuck up, because I'm quite reserved and quiet. So if you don't know me, so say you came to the magic circle and I was sitting in the club room on my own, which I do quite a lot, someone who doesn't know me might think, who the fuck's he? He thinks he's a bit up himself, but I'm actually just thinking, okay, cool. Do my stuff. Okay, cool. And if someone wants to approach me and then talk to me, then it's like, oh, you pulled the plug out. But in a lot of social situations, it's handy to kind of be able to go, it's just nice knowing it's there. Like when I got married, my wife was, I'm sure she won't mind me saying, she was convinced she was going to faint when we got married. And she was like, I'm really worried about it. Everyone's going to see me. I'm going to faint. And we just decided to have 2 chairs behind us at the altar. and just knowing they were there, it didn't cross their mind at all. But it was the run up, and it was the kind of a lot of the time I'll take tricks out with me and I won't use them. You know, yeah, I think you definitely use them as a prop for sure.
It's the safety.
But it's a good way to meet people.
Yeah, a lot of people need that safety net, and I think it's a couple of fantastic points on that. Is that what's happening now? The more means we have of communicating, such as technology and so on and so forth, I actually think the worse we are at it, because what happens is we don't know how to talk one to one. What we do, if you see people in restaurants, eventually when we get back there,
yeah,
they've all got the thing out, they're all on their phone, they're all checking their social media every 5 seconds. They're not engaging. And what happens with
it's really confusing. Confusing. It's confusing seeing people because they're constantly updating what they're doing, even while they're doing things.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you're not experiencing anything. You know, it's a constant stream of things. And you know, my sister lives in Notting Hill, and I love going to visit her because I just love seeing everyone just going like, they'll stand outside someone's house and be like, wow, you know, this, and it's all about, you know, they're arranging their food on the plate and getting the coffee and all that sort of stuff. And it's almost like they're kind of living like this.
Yeah, oh, they are.
And people used to say that about cameras, you know, like, don't take photos on holiday, experience it. And
absolutely. And you find, I mean, there's some extraordinary shots. I remember seeing one when Venice, a number of people there, and everybody, they was going through, it was a wonderful gondola ride.
Yeah.
And all of these people took the picture of it, and everyone, most glorious architecture, steeped in history. Every possible sense could be tickled, from the wonderful smells to the glorious feast for the eyes. And everybody was on their phone doing this sort of stuff. And you're missing the world.
Yeah.
In the same way, people go to concerts. A lot of artists hate this. When they're on the stage doing the performance and everybody's filming it. So what, you can then watch it on this little screen at the end on tinny little sound or something. Oh, great
well,
sound.
the person standing next to them.
The moment.
No, and the person standing next to them who is also filming it, who could post that on YouTube, you could just go and watch that. What's the point of being there at all?
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. Well, you take it. But also what happens is most people, and we grew up in the original, I looked after Fujifilm for many years, and they used to dip film. You remember, they used to come in, I think it's 24 and 36, and half of them will be great. And you would print out everything, and you work that out. And even then, we had too many. Now, with a mobile phone, we take zillions every day, most of which we'll never look at again.
No.
Other than to show off to people, because this is what society's done to us, other than to show off to people what fabulous lives we've had. Look where I've been today. Look at my wonderful food. Look at the holiday I've got. What's that about?
But it's also, it's putting a lot of pressure on every single moment of your day to be worth talking about. You know, like, woe betide, someone would wake up, shuffle around in their pants for 24 hours, you know, like they can do that. And maybe that's something that from lockdown will come, because one thing I have noticed, I didn't have any social media until I left teaching, and I only got it to kind of run alongside my business. And I have noticed over the last 11 weeks, there's less and less, and there's obviously the same tip that keeps coming in, the same things that get shared. But in terms of people actually going, I'm here, I'm doing this, that's all stopped dead in the water. And actually, Facebook and Instagram are really boring at the moment, but in a good way, because it is, as you said earlier, you know, with the psychological elements to it. I mean, even the pulling the screen down is like a one-armed bandit machine. You know, we're going to get something like that. It is a genuine addiction, and a lot of the behaviours that, especially, I mean, you try to take a young person's phone away from them in a class, like if it was a football, okay, sir. If it's their phone, their hand clamps around it, and they're like, "You are not. I will happily be expelled. You are not taking this away from me." And it is a genuine addiction, because they, as we were saying, the negative aspects of it with the bullying. But even if it's not about that, the kids are waking up, and adults do as well. They wake up and go, right, first thing to do. I've had any emails in the 4 hours I was asleep, you know, between 3 and 7 a.m.
And what it is, Simon, it's the most powerful selling tool. It's what Barnard said, right? The father of PR. The most powerful selling tool is fear. It's fear of missing out. It's fear of not being able to do something. It's fear of, if I don't pass on this message, something terrible is going to happen, like these chain letters. Everything's based on fear. And if you're working on that premise, we're living in fear, which is strangling creativity. It's strangling our ability to question everything. And it's also forcing us to disclose much more about ourselves. So the whole thing about all these little surveys on social media and what's your top 10 list and everything else, it's all data. And data is the new currency, so people can sell things to you.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It was strange. It was weird because when the whole time I didn't have social media, I was able to use the fact that I was a teacher as my excuse for not having social media. Right. But I didn't have social media because I didn't give a shit what everyone had for breakfast and where they were going. And I also knew that I have, you know, I tend to get quite obsessive. So I knew as soon as I dip my toes into it, it's going to swallow me whole. And it did for a while. You know, I remember like the first month when I had Facebook, I was like, I've got to think of something really funny to put on. What's funny? What around me is funny? Is this funny? Are you funny? Like, you know, like, can I have something to make me validated? Yeah. Because you get that first little, and then that's it. You're addicted, you know. And I'm much better with it now. But I think lockdown has been actually a bit of a godsend in terms of like slowing people down a bit, say on social media, because they're doing the same thing every day, and they don't have the option to go and think, right, today I need to go to this cafe and take a picture of this biscuit and that sort of thing. It's like, well, what did you do today? I had a lovely day with my kids in the garden. We made a fort out of cardboard boxes and it had a water fight and stuff like that. Or, you know, what did you do today? Fuck all. I did nothing. And it was really good. Absolutely loved it. Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to see people putting that on Instagram.
Oh, I think if this is the moment, and as I said, well, a number of things have happened, and a really dangerous thing, because there are people living in total isolation. And there, and what I get very frustrated when there are things I can't change. It's probably psychological for me, and it is. They always say in that famous prayer that you have to work out the things that you can change and change them, and things you can't and accept it and recognize the difference. You know, work on that sort of basis. But there are people who will be watching this who will get benefits, and because they've come on the show and they've written and spoken about this sort of stuff, they get benefits from hearing other people just being honest. Just turning around and saying, look, it's all right. You know, we've had a terrible day and we're going to talk about that, but this is how we coped with it. Yeah. This is what we spoke about. So you're not alone in your feelings. Not everybody's got a wonderful life and you're missing out. It's not your fear of missing out. Now we can be real.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of parents of the school that my kids go to. It's just up the road, and you know, we're all on Facebook and stuff. And what's been nice is I've seen some parents who are that kind of, every picture has to be like a masterpiece and framed and perfect and everything's great. And I can see them just slowing down a bit, and they're starting to put pictures of themselves in the garden with the kids, and, you know, and actually going, do you know what? I had a really lovely day today. It's really nice. And I think you're right to say this is like my opinion on my experience of lockdown. It is horrible for a lot of people. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are desperate to get out and to have, you know, have their lives back. I'm speaking as a bit of an introvert and a bit of a hermit. You know, I've been training for this my whole life. So, you know, to a certain extent, I'm in my element. I'm finding it difficult being isolated from my family and friends and things like that. But I guess I'm just trying to make the most of it, get as much out of it as possible, which is, in my particular situation, you know, in 10 years time, when my kids both think I'm a complete dickhead, I'll have this really lovely, you know, extended period of time that we had, and maybe they won't think I'm a dickhead because they've had all this extra time with me, and we'll get to know each other a bit better. I mean, I am a dickhead.
Also, what will happen, that they will look back on this when you never appreciate your parents more than when you yourself are a parent.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because it's a feeling of sort of coming full circle. When I remember the first time sort of my mum and dad came over, and I remember thinking, like, Oh wow, okay, because it was almost like a carbon copy of like my mum and dad's dad, my mum's mum and dad coming over, and the age they were and the age I was, and I was like, oh wow, so yeah, this has come full circle now. I'm the dad. You think, ah, yeah, it is, and it's easier to sort of rationalize anything that maybe you weren't so happy about with growing up, or things that you think may have not happened how you would have liked, because you think, well, you were just doing your best. You know, it's hard work, and you don't see your parents as humans really until, and like you say, until you get to a certain point in your life.
I think
That's quite good.
the other thing as well, and what I always try and encourage people to do is to say to people what you really want to say. If today is the last day that you're here, is there something that you would want to say to somebody, and which they would regret if you never told them? Whether it's I love you, or I want to tell you this, or this is what I really felt about something. I think telling people that, the old, we talked about Robin Williams beforehand, and classic teaching moment with the Fisher King, the carpe diem, go fishing. You work on that sort of principle, that if you want to tell somebody about, I hate unfinished business, I hate regrets, and people get eaten up with regrets, where they look at, and the reason death is so difficult for people is because they haven't had a chance to say goodbye, or they wish they'd told this person something, or they miss it. So the one thing I would always urge people to do is to try and patch up the misunderstandings, try and understand other people's perspective, try and correct the wrong perceptions, and make sure you've got reality, and listen to what they have to say.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, if there's anything from an unfinished point of view, what would you want to say to your parents or to your children now?
Wow, that's a nice question. To my parents, I mean, I understand a lot more what it's like being a teacher and a parent at the same time. And, you know, they did it for 20 years longer than I did. And I think that's amazing. I think I really hope that my kids, because when I was teaching, I wasn't, you know, not horrible. I didn't hit my kids or anything like that. I was just grumpy, just a grumpy asshole, a lot of the time. And I really, really hope that when they are older, they'll be able to understand a little bit more why. Because I understand, I mean, my dad went through a similar thing as I did, actually. And I remember vividly that time as a child when I was, oh, he's just pissed off all the time. He's really sensitive, really kind of like, you know, just, you know, and I'm kind of I'm frustrated that I didn't know the context. It was just sort of, oh, just leave that alone, you know. And so I try and be a lot more articulate with my boys about my mental health and about my emotions and their emotions. I don't try and sort of put myself on a pedestal of, you know, I'm perfect, I don't have any flaws. You know, sometimes I'll say to them, like, Daddy gets sad sometimes, you know, and I'm struggling a bit today. And so I might need to I'm just going to be on the sofa today, boys, you know. And I want to nurture kindness in them. I think kindness is vital. You can't live a good life without, you know, being a kind person. And yeah, they are. I mean, they're lovely, lovely boys. You know, they're 4 and 7, so they've you know, got a lot of work to do. But I'm keen for them to, you know, I tell them I love them every day. I can't leave the house. I can't leave a room. You know, I can't go to the shop without going. I'll go, I love you guys, and like my wife will go, love you, and little one will go, love you, and I'm like, I love you, Ruben. Like shout at them and go, sorry, yeah, I love you too, Dad. Because I didn't grow up with, you know, my parents are lovely, lovely people, really kind, really warm, loving people. But for some reason, saying I love you wasn't a thing, for whatever reason. And it never really kind of, it wasn't until I started kind of having a relationship, like a proper relationship with my wife, then that I realized that, like, you know, I experienced her family, and they say I love you all the time, you know. And I'd be like, oh, that's really strange. And I've tried, it's a bit, my wife says it's a bit passive aggressive, but whenever we leave my parents' house in the car, I wind down the back windows and I get the kids to shout, "We love you, Nana and Grandad!" Like, you're going to say I love you. You know? But yeah, I think I'm definitely a better dad for not being a teacher. Definitely, you know, other people's kids have had 10 years of my life. You know, that's tens of thousands of kids, and I want to focus on my two and make sure they have a good experience of me. And it might be when I'm older and when they think I'm a dickhead, I'll go back into teaching. But I couldn't be a part of what teaching was or is. I didn't have like I said, some of the people I worked with, just for their work ethic was phenomenal. You know, they would stay at work until 8 p.m. Some of them wouldn't see their kids. They'd take marking home over the weekend, and I was always a bit more stubborn. I was a bit sort of like, well, I want to see my family. I want to see my kids. But that caused more stress for me because there was always stuff that I wasn't doing. But I'm very bad at doing something, not doing things if I don't think they're completely necessary. So my inbox on my desk, I used to have an inbox, an outbox, and a shake it all about box. And everything goes in the shake it all about box to start with. And if it's important enough for someone to remind me about it, it goes in my inbox. Because the sheer volume of stuff that got sent, you know, stuff in your pigeonhole, emails and stuff, most of it isn't ever going to be mentioned again. It's just people ticking their own little boxes and stuff. And so I have to have a sort of bit of a bullshit filter, and just do the things that I really believe in. And I've got faith in myself that I'm a good person and that I don't have any sinister plans or anything. I just want to have a nice life with my lovely family, and teach them to be good people. I don't need to teach my wife to be but teach my kids to be a good person.
We all need to learn to be a good person. And it's some of those tips. So what we're going to be doing, we're bringing you back on a regular basis when you can spare the time. It'd be lovely. And what we're going to do is look at some of those tips, because actually there are ways of handling it. So the first thing for everybody is recognition. We are all the same. We all have our challenges, and it affects people in different ways. We can all recognize that. Even the bullies are probably bullied and everything else. Putting things in perspective is really important. Saying to people what you really feel, so that we have that opportunity to explain and look, there's a reason I was snappy today or whatever, or I feel so terrible that I couldn't be here because I was trying to earn enough money to feed the family or whatever. You've got a chance to do all of that sort of stuff. So what I really want to do, and we're going to bring you back, but there's also lots of practical stuff as well. You're wonderfully creative. You talked about the puzzles, you talked about the other bits and pieces. Give us a little flavour of the sort of stuff we're going to be looking at in terms of top tips, in terms of stuff people can do at home, in terms of improving people's life, in terms of everything. Give us a little sample.
The first thing I was going to talk about was how to sort of generate an idea, how to cut, where to start with. Like I said earlier, if you've got a blank sheet of paper and you think, right, I want to create something, because I think a lot of people in lockdown are tapping into this creative element that maybe has been squashed in year 7 when their mates took the piss out of them because they did a good bit of art homework, you know, and it's all starting to sort of blossom. And then I think people are kind of going like, right, well, where do I start? So I was going to do a few top tips on how to start coming up with a design, or how to choose what you want
so
to design and where
side, that'd be fantastic. Top tips on being creative. As I say, if you go into a classroom of 5-year-olds and say who can paint, everybody's hand go up. Go into a classroom of adults, and you never get that, and say who can paint. You know, let's get back to being creative. Okay, love that. So we do top tips of creativity.
Yep, and I was going to cover a few of I did a talk about PowerPoint at the circle a while ago.
The practical stuff about tech, how to use PowerPoint, how to use that sort of side. So things that every people have got at the moment, but may not understand fully the power of it. Okay.
But it's using PowerPoint as a sort of an image manipulation tool rather than as a slideshow creator. So when I was teaching, I wouldn't teach them I wouldn't teach these 11-year-olds how to use Photoshop, because 99% of them are never going to use it. It's a very expensive program. They're not going to have it at home. But most of the kids that I taught would have PowerPoint on their home laptop or home computer.
So we're doing that. We're doing the power of PowerPoint. We like the power of PowerPoint.
Yeah. And what, anything, I mean, I can do like really practical things, like how to make your wood look distressed. And
that's good. So we're looking, because you create some fantastic props. You also create some fantastic puzzles, that we have a little section in the show called the afternoon teas, So we
Oh,
have
yeah.
little puzzles. So I like that sort of stuff. So all of that is going to be absolutely brilliant. I know you've got a busy day ahead, looking after the children as well today.
Yeah.
We will bring you back. So if people do have comments, if they want to share anything with the show, you write to lol, that's LOL, at octopustv.com. If you want to take part, if you've got questions for Simon, do put those in the comments and we will get you back. But for now, Simon Craze, thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So there you have it, my very special guest, the wonderful and wonderfully honest Simon Craze. Thank you very much to him. If you are affected by any of the issues discussed, if you'd like to discuss them yourselves, talk to people. That's the key. If you want to come on the show, be delighted to hear from you. If you've got any comments on the things that we've discussed, do write to me. That's LOL at octopustv.com. Don't forget to subscribe to Octopus TV for much, much more of the same. But for me, Andrew Eborn, thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Take care.